On a bright November morning in 1963, the city of Dallas buzzed with anticipation. Crowds lined the streets, waving flags and cheering, their faces turned toward the open limousine gliding down Elm Street. Seated inside was John Fitzgerald Kennedy, the 35th President of the United States, beside his wife Jacqueline, both smiling and waving. The air was light, festive even, until in a sudden instant, it wasn't. John F. Kennedy's journey to that moment began long before. Born into a wealthy Massachusetts family, he was a war hero, a Harvard graduate, and a rising star in American politics. In 1960, he became the youngest man ever elected president. With charm, eloquence, and a vision for a better America, he spoke of new frontiers, space exploration, civil rights, peace in a divided world. He inspired a generation to ask not what their country could do for them, but what they could do for their country. Yet beneath the polished image lay a turbulent time. The Cold War raged. The Bay of Pigs invasion had been a failure, and the Cuban Missile Crisis had brought the world to the brink of nuclear war. At home, civil rights protests intensified, dividing the nation. And though JFK carried the aura of a beloved leader, he had enemies in politics, in ideology, and perhaps even in shadows the public couldn't see. On November 22, 1963, Kennedy visited Dallas as part of a political tour ahead of the 1964 election. Texas was crucial but divided, and Kennedy aimed to unify its Democratic factions. The motorcade route was public, mapped out days in advance. It would pass through Dealey Plaza, where tall buildings overlooked the streets below. At 12:30 p.m., as the limousine passed the Texas School Book Depository, a series of sharp, cracking sounds split the air. Some thought they were firecrackers, others ducked instinctively, but the horror soon became clear. A bullet struck the president in the back. Another, fatal, pierced his head. Jacqueline Kennedy reached out in a desperate, surreal moment, climbing onto the back of the car. Chaos erupted. The motorcade sped toward Parkland Memorial Hospital. Doctors tried everything, but at 1 p.m., John F. Kennedy was pronounced dead. In a nearby theater less than 2 hours later, police arrested a man named Lee Harvey Oswald, a former Marine, defector to the Soviet Union, and supporter of Fidel Castro. Oswald had returned to the U.S. with radical ideas and growing discontent. He worked at the book depository, exactly where witnesses reported seeing a rifle. Oswald never stood trial. 2 days after the assassination, as he was being transferred from the Dallas City jail, a nightclub owner named Jack Ruby stepped out of a crowd and shot him dead on live television. The nation plunged into mourning. Schools closed, businesses shut down. Millions watched as a somber funeral procession wound through Washington, D.C. Little John Jr., just 3 years old, famously saluted his father's casket. The image seared itself into the American conscience. But as time passed, questions began to mount. Was Oswald truly the lone gunman? Did he act alone? Why did Jack Ruby silence him? The Warren Commission concluded that Oswald acted independently, firing 3 shots from the 6th floor of the depository. But public doubt persisted and still does. Alternative theories multiplied. Multiple shooters, CIA involvement, mafia ties, even foreign governments. Films were scrutinized frame by frame. Witness testimonies conflicted. Documents were sealed. The truth, many believed, remained buried. John F. Kennedy's death was more than the loss of a president. It marked the end of innocence for many Americans. It shattered trust, opened wounds, and ushered in an age of skepticism. Yet his legacy endured. Through the Peace Corps, the push for civil rights, and a dream of landing on the moon, fulfilled just 6 years later. To this day, the assassination remains one of the most studied, debated, and mourned events in modern history. a moment when time stood still, when the world watched, heartbroken, as a young leader's life was stolen in an instant, and a nation was forever changed.